Good morning. This is my fourth video. Um, I was meaning to do this topic sooner rather than later, but I'm deciding to do it now um, because uh, I strongly feel that it needs to be emphasized a lot because I tried to do a live stream once talking about this, but I kind of cut it down and deleted the video because I wasn't getting out. But it was, it's hard to talk about, and I wasn't. I can't. Um, there's a lot of areas and depths and the complexities and how far this can go. And the topic I'm going to talk about is mental health. um, Mental illness, mental health issues. This is all particularly around mental health. Like other areas might come in into it if it has some if it's directly or indirectly linked or linked in some way or another to mental health. Like maybe physical health and stuff like that. But I'm going to try and particularly sort it for mental health, mental illness, um, for Ireland, and this would be maybe stemming outside of Ireland to other countries as well on a global scale as well. Um, what what I'm really annoyed about with the mental health is that there is not enough being done. There is not enough being done at all by the powers that be, particularly in Ireland anyway. There, I feel that the government and the government are not actually looking into mental health. There's not enough funding being done, and there's some errors, major errors that to me are quite obvious that need to be fixed in the mental health system, mental health services, the system. Um, it's to do with the system, and it's to do with our government not putting enough funding um, into it, particularly from the Department of Health. And this would link into the authorities as well, Department of Justice as well, but like that would be linked somewhat. But Department of Health is the main. Well, the Department of Justice is strongly linked. Like there's so many areas here. So what I'll try and do is keep it on a generalized ground as much as I can, generally um, on the issue. Um, the thing is, like, if you suffer from mental health issues like depression and anxiety, I'll use depression and anxiety as an example. Um, it's the supports that are there within the system are really inadequate and very poor and very poor and um, really lack resources for people that really need help or need a support out of the services. Like I know there's services there, like they have facilities, institutions set up like psychiatric institutions stemming from the HSE within the HSE, what stems as like as its own. It is a field of its own, psychiatric field in that, but the the mental health institutions, psychiatric field of in this area of health is very poorly run. It's because to to it's the first line of contact for anything. If you got any form of depression or anxiety and mental health illness, mental health issues. I mean, the problem is, I feel that the the uh, the mental that GPs are not really fully trained to be no, they're not fully trained to be dealing with mental health issues. I feel that way. I agree that they're trained to a certain extent, but on a very low scale because people who go to GPs mainly would be people who like the majority of people who go to GPs. I'd say many people who go to GPs are people who would have problems with if they need any blood tests to help them with conditions like diabetes and um, and other difficulties that they'd have. And going to a GP, it's mainly elderly people, maybe around middle-aged elderly people, go there for checkups, blood tests, um, urine tests and results on those things. But the issue I have that's grand. Like I've not that's actually perfect in the sense that it's very suitable for those people with those conditions. Like because with diabetes, like you use insulin to help with your blood sugar levels. Like there's insulin is the solution. It helps your sugar levels go back to the level, the optimum level, the functional level it needs to in your body. Like there's an answer there on that, and the GP and whoever else in the facility when it comes to the healthcare centres within for GPs and that they're pretty much trained for that and it's suitable, it's valid in those circumstances. But the thing is, bringing people with mental health issues or mental like depression and anxiety, those type of issues, it just to me it doesn't seem suitable to be going to a GP as the first line of um, the first line of the first line of contact, the first in the patch because I know the GP can refer you on to other fields, um, when other doctors that are mental health professionals, let's say, um, when it comes to with doctors, therapists, and that kind of thing. But the GP is, I feel, is not fully trained to be going there in the first. GPs are general, like I feel that we should be having people that are more specialized, healthcare professionals that are more specialized in mental health. And what we need to do is remove mental illness out of going to a GP and bring the first line of contact to someone that is more specialized directly with mental health alone, without any other conditions that's not psychiatric in that capacity. Like I was saying about people with diabetes or other conditions of the like or a similar function or whatever way, like them going to like getting diabetes, blood sugar level checks, and that kind of thing. Um, that like we need to remove that, like because it just going to a GP like is they're not, you know. That's how I feel about that. And going to it for people who want to go to a GP for depression and anxiety. Um, it's just like the GP. I don't know. The problem with the mental health system as well, and for the people who need help with that, is that medications is like the real is seemingly the first answer to the whole problem or sort of solution or the first solution they kind of throw at people, particularly generally in the healthcare system, the HSE, and that they just throw medications at you before actually analysing what the real problem is with the patient. Like they listen to the patient somewhat, but it's not enough of an assessment. Like they just throw meds at you, like in whatever way, by word of mouth. They throw meds at you by word of mouth, feedback by the word of mouth. They don't do a proper brain scan, or they don't do any tests like in a for a mental health view or perspective. And it's all like they might do other things like blood sugar levels and that and this, but that's generalized body health. It's not like mental health is such a different thing. I know that can link into mental health, but that is mental health anyway. We all have mental health, but I'm talking about mental health issues, depression and anxiety, for example, and other ones of the like, conditions that are a brain disorder in that way. They throw meds at you in the first place, and I feel it's quite risky and dodgy because meds for certain it might work with certain people, but some people might not need meds at all. Some like in with pharma, like from the big pharmaceuticals. but they actually just might need talking therapy, like go to an adequate counselor, an adequate therapist. That's all talking therapy with no meds being uh, being being considered. Like it's all just all primarily talking therapy. Like I agree, there could be other ones as well where there could be people who might need meds. If the meds work for them, that will work for them. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. Um, and I in the first video, I explain about about illicit drugs, illegal drugs that are illegal, and how it doesn't work. Um, like it causes so much more damage and crime, and the damages our communities. Prohibition, and this really links into the mental health institutions as well. Or it's all linked and all in one kind of unit together, because I know that when it comes to certain legal drugs, that would really, I think that there's one particular drug, which is cannabis. I'll just say it out now, cannabis, that would actually help an awful lot of people with mental health disorders, I feel. I agree that cannabis can cause serious down effects, such as um, downers, such as developing conditions such as psychosis, which is an extreme form of a mental health condition, and other ones, but as well of the like. But the thing is, the reason why they happen, or primarily why psychosis and um, where damage happens like from drug use, is because of the prohibition. It's the prohibition, not the actual drugs themselves. I agree, if they were legalized and you had doctors, mental health or professionals of all levels, not just mental health, and all in the healthcare system looking after illegal drugs without law enforcement being involved, you people could still get bad side effects from the drugs in a bad way, or in a negative way. But that goes for all drugs, doesn't it? Like that goes for all, even the pharma drugs. There's drugs that are administered and highly manufactured by pharma, um, that that are just as deadly and lethal. A strong example is Xanax and Prozac. They're so strong, but you wouldn't be committing a crime taking as much of them as you wanted. If you were prescribed, or you were lost your. I know you get advice off the doctor and a dosage, but people are on the run of themselves. Like, I mean, it's a free for all after they see the doctor, or the time after the doctor is seen. I just feel it's a poor way of doing things. Like this goes into a lot of areas. Like I wouldn't even know if I've got the full valid picture of it all here, but like in a sense, like a lot of depths come into this. But on the you know like the if you're caught with an illegal drug, like you're really punished under the law, the system, and the judge. If you're up in the front of a judge, like it's particularly district court judges, they really like say you're lucky, and they really make you out as if you're a big huge criminal for being caught with a bit of cannabis or whatever other illegal drug. And it's kind of like they wouldn't give that to you though if you had a drug problem with, let's say, Prozac or Xanax or Valium or even other drugs like that. They wouldn't care then. They wouldn't be punishing you then. It's like, oh, it's up to you. It's up to yourself. You're your own adult. But why can't you be your own adult when it comes to doing whatever you want with your own body if you're not harming anybody, even with illegal drugs? Um, yeah. That really stems into the mental health issues as well. I feel very strongly, extreme, I must say. I say I have an extreme view on this prohibition, because it's a mess. Like it's such a mess of a policy. It's a mess of a thing, and it's just big money is being made by the courts and by the judiciary and by the authorities that be, and they just don't care for the patients or anything. And like for myself, I need safe access to medical cannabis because of what happened with the restorative justice in the community in Nina and those people like that. And I really need safe access out of that. And when I came more verbal about it, I was I was ridiculed and mocked, like, so, by Gardaí and by even other people as well. Some, not all Gardaí, but one in particular really mocked me to the fucking heavens. Sorry for cursing, actually. No, like I feel very strongly about this. Um, I'm in this bit of a mood today. Like, I'm on this topic here about it. I'm repeating the same thing, but this is how this is the stress that I'm in at the moment. But I'll go back to the mental health thing because I'm going on veering into another topic. Like, The problem I have with the mental health services is that, or particularly some errors, is that when you go to like um to go to a therapist, or go, let's say you were to go to a therapist, a private therapist, or someone, like for any, form of therapy, occupational therapy, or um things like that. Um, it costs in the range. I looked at the ranges, and it costs about like €60 to €80 per hour to go to a therapist in a private capacity. That's not, um, let's say, a public owned or run uh, facility or institution. And I'm happy in the public ones that there are some free support services that are free for the patients, like Pieta House and peer support centres and that. I appreciate them, but even them themselves aren't getting the funding they need, and they're even inadequate to deal with mental health. I say on a certain capacity, because they're not being funded enough, or so, to a certain extent, they are good in their own ways, but there are some they lack in ways, some ways, because of the system, because of lack of funding by our government. But to the back to the private capacity, like to go to see someone, it costs 60 to €80 an hour for the patient themselves to go to that therapist. Something seriously wrong there already, though, isn't there? I mean, why should the patient have to pay 60 or whatever amount per hour to a therapist on these issues if it costs, if suicide, let's say suicide is going to be a prominent symptom, or symptoms of mental health issues, which have which um which can come about any time and every time. The symptoms can be in any severity, any level, from low, moderate to severe, even severe being at its worst. Can stay there prolonged. It doesn't cost any money to have them. It stems on people's life issues, general life events, general life's problems, or that stems into a very in depth, a very it stems into a very inner depted issue and problems, and it costs money for them to go to a therapist. Like, how much does it cost to? I will say it out now. How much does it cost to think about suicide? It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost. It costs nothing to think about suicide, and even at its worst, it costs nothing to even attempt suicide. It costs nothing to attempt suicide at all. Like, I'll give an example. In Limerick, there is one place. I won't say the name of the place, an identity of people, but there's one place in Limerick City, that costs €80 per hour for a patient to go there and get help. The patient has to pay €80 per hour directly to go there, while it costs nothing to commit suicide, nothing to actually commit or even think about committing that act. It makes me very angry that I'm infuriated over it, and especially that Limerick, in that river, that suicides and attempted suicides going on are so rampant and so out of control and going on so much. And it's like our government's response. They've been campaigners, very good, which I'm really thankful for them people, campaigners, and who have been addressing this issue and things like this, and out to Dáil Éireann and out to the councillors around Limerick and elsewhere around the country, on this matter. And the response, the powers that be, the government and the councillors, are just so apathetic or so vague. They're not responding. While this is actually it's worsening. This problem is worsening, and I can't understand, like, how that is just being let go. Like, why are they not funding it? Like, why? Like, it's just, I know the answer, and this answer is pretty grim. This answer is pretty grim, that they don't really give a beep about suicides. They don't give a damn about suicides, is what it really is, and I'm irritated by it a lot. Um, yeah. With that, like I'm not. I agree that the therapists, and them in that place where I'm saying €80 per hour for someone, I agree that the therapists that are working in those positions, they should be getting paid that money per hour. I'm not saying they should be all free, like, for them not getting paid. Of course they get paid, but in these places where it costs money for an individual, a patient who suffers from any of these conditions, to a therapist, this should be all funded by the state. It should all be government funded, so that, and the reason why is because it's suicide, that it would reduce suicide to the highest capacity and capability. If you had all these services that, from top to bottom on mental health therapy, or with psychiatrists, psychotherapists, occupational therapists, all those levels, all those tiers, and that from all levels, I'd say the suicide rates would go down. It would plummet down, and it would reduce at least, because no one would be paying any fee or any bill to go to see a therapist when it comes to these issues where it costs nothing to even self-harm, or even the thoughts of it, or even to feel that way. It costs it. It should be like, it should be funded by the government to pay these therapists or these people, but it's just not done that way. And it's all like, oh, if you don't, it's basically saying, if you don't have the money, good luck. If you don't have the money, we can't help you. If you have the money, we will. If you have 60 to 80 euro per hour, even for any session, we will help you in that hour. But if you don't have it, good luck. And look, if you're thinking about suicide, good luck then. Commit it or don't. That's what they're kind of saying with the way it's so bad. It's so bad. Like, I feel, I'm hyped up about, in a sense that I'm mad about this sort of stuff, and I've been trying to do a video on this once, as I was saying, even before, and I kept cutting it off. But I'm on the course now. I might as well keep going. Um, you know, yeah. Um, it's incredible, like how. Now this is actually, and it's just the fact that the mental health facility, the crisis is getting worse and worse and worse. And even in Limerick as well, I saw a video put up in January, posted up in Limerick City, where the chairman of the organisation, Limerick Suicide Prevention Treaty, it was called Limerick Suicide Prevention Treaty. And the aim of Limerick Suicide Prevention Treaty, what they do is which they're very good people. I really praise those people for what they do. But what they do is they patrol the river, Shannon. They patrol that river, predominantly through the night, and they try and save people who attempt suicide in that river, and they don't get paid a penny. They don't get paid a cent for standing out all night in those rivers, especially in the winter, when it's freezing cold nights, like with temperatures below at freezing and below freezing at times, and the water is so cold, and the air and everything, the wind, and they're up there all night um they should be getting paid a lot of money. I feel a lot. Like, they should be getting, and the city, the mayor and the councillors of Limerick are not really doing anything about it. Like, but the thing about that is that the chairman put up a video there saying that they're going homeless, and when he said about becoming homeless, they had nowhere to store their equipment. That there's equipment um, that they own, like, like the boating equipment, like the engine and the boat and the canoes and all that sort of thing, or whatever their equipment, like their equipment to be able to, they would need to help people prevent suicide, their boats and that, like the engines that they'd need, the speed engines that they'd need to get out to the victims, get out to the people to save them as quick as possible. Well, they have nowhere to store that equipment. They have nowhere to store it, and there is a place in Artis Key. There's an old tourist information centre, and I think there's other buildings that are abandoned as well. But particularly, there's an old tourist information centre that's been abandoned for years, and the building has been left there, like not being or nothing being really done with it, just left there, like not being really maintained or anything either. And they called on the councillors. They called on the councils in Limerick, um, to even the governments as well, they put up a video to get it out there to, the chairman did, to be able to store their equipment in the old tourist information centre. If they could, like, give them a place for a square box to store it, and they'll look after it, and if they could just get the help to you know repair, do maintenance and that to its capacity, and for a functional capacity, so they could go in and store their equipment and everything. And also as well, it's in Artis Key, which is very, located very close to the river, so it'd be very ideal for them to be there so that they can get their equipment and go out and be, kind of go up and back, transfer, like travel up and back there, like for equipment and everything. It would be very ideal. The thing about it is, this councillor, try to get onto the councils or get onto people in charge of the city on this matter to have, where they were becoming homeless in the tourist information centre to store their equipment. And they got no response. The people in charge in the councils wouldn't actually get back to them. They were being very steadfast and silent on the issue. They wouldn't give. They were being very quiet, like, or they wouldn't. They were getting no response. Limerick Suicide Prevention Treaty, that being getting no response at all when they were trying to like get onto them, and just being they were being very steadfast, very like they were being very like vague on the matter. And like when he put up a video saying that he had to put up a video out there. He put up a video saying that they're homeless and that what, like, saying that people are in charge of Limerick and that what is not wrong with she, like, not all people in Limerick, not people with generalised services that look after the city, but the people that are in charge. And they you know it's like kind of like, this is a matter of saving lives. These people are saving lives. These people are saving lives of people that are attempting suicide in the rivers, or potentially, even at bay, that are even thinking about it. If they come across someone in distress, and our powers that be won't, in Limerick particularly, won't even help these people, support these people in any way. And these councils, they're just doing basically f all on the matter, and they're getting so much. The councils are getting a good proportion of money from the government to be able to do what they're doing, and even our government are just not acting on these matters. And it's not even a small issue. It's like this is our mental. This is about saving lives. This is our mental health crisis. And even I saw other videos. I looked into other videos that this chairman put up with other people there, and they're doing a great deal of work. I appreciate Limerick's suicide prevention treaty. So well done to you. Like, I really appreciate what you're doing. So keep up what you're doing. But they said that even if they weren't there, at all, like if they weren't even there, like to save or even be in any way present on this issue, this mental health crisis, it would be an awful lot worse. Like the death scale, the death scale would be an awful lot worse in Limerick, and the outcome would be an awful lot worse because no one would be there to actually deal, like, to deal with any. I'd say, well, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but to deal with any bodies from people who successfully committed that act. I just, it's shocking. And I appreciate Limerick's word in the street. They got onto and they actually updated the video on their page, and they said that I hope that the councils actually support them and give them the supports they need. They truly deserve it, and fair play to Limerick's word in the street on this. Because I just, when I saw that, like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't actually believe that it was gone to that extent, where they're an organisation that saves lives in the river, not being paid a cent or a penny, and they probably have to work outside of their own hours, like outside of their full-time jobs, paid jobs or whatever, like, to even do this. And just they have such empathy and massive empathy for everybody, for people, and they're not even getting paid or supported from anyone that needs it. Um, this all links to it costing 60 to 80 euro per hour to go to let's say, a mental health professional in a private capacity, or in a capacity of the like. The problem is it shouldn't cost money, but when it comes to suicide, it costs nothing to commit suicide. It costs nothing to think about it, even be in that state. And it just stems into a way deeper than other conditions, in the sense that these are general life issues. These can be triggering for people, and all life issues when it comes to societal issues, civil issues, with society, with the peers, with the generalized society, with the way the peer support is, or their peers, their pressure. People are pressured with so many issues, especially in this day with social media and technological being on the rise, with more technology, like being there. And you think that the government would be more responsive to help people, but when we're in a crisis where everything's becoming more artificial, I'm not saying it's a crisis. Well, it is a crisis of itself, that mobile phones and electronic devices, technology is really on the rise. Things are becoming more artificial and technological, and that is damaging, being so detrimental on a major level for people's emotional health, and I guess physical well-being and other, but particularly for emotional and mental well-being, it's being really, you know, and they don't even want to act on it. These people in power, it brings, it pains me to say this, but they're just not there for our good. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and the Greens are just, they're not there for our good on these issues, and even other issues as well. When it comes to, when I was saying about the tax and the landlords as well in the previous videos, like this stems into them as well. It goes into people not being able to get their own properties and all that as well. And it's because I feel that it's a large proportion is to do with individuals owning too many properties and that kind of thing. Um, so this stems into so many areas, all areas, directly or indirectly, like, because this is about anything and everything with mental health, particularly mental health issues. Um, yeah, like what we need to do is we need to have all institutions, all psychiatric fields, um, it's particular for all areas to be funded so that all people can get free forms of therapy, forms of psychiatric help or mental help, and even for as well on that. Because that just with suicide and that costs nothing. And how this, I've seen some posts as well out there where I couldn't believe it was the worst thing I've seen yet, or the worst thing I've seen, one of the worst things I've come across um where they had a post put out. It was in Limerick. Limerick Leader did it. I don't know I'm calling it Limerick Leader, but Limerick Leader basically put out a post saying um, for Mental Health Awareness Week, which happened last year. Mental Health Awareness Week is actually a week where they they kind of emphasize mental, like the people who struggle mentally, mental health, like with suicide, or suicide as well. But they they uh, they emphasize and kind of express how the the services for mental health, and they went around the river and patrolled the river with around the city, and they lit up a load of different places with lights, like green lights, blue lights, red lights, to emphasize Mental Health Week. And that was a great. There was a great aspect there. The principle was great there, but it was all just completely. It's all just ruined for what I saw, because the post that was put up by Limerick Leader was that we are Limerick Mental Health Week, or on the way towards Mental Health Week. People are We're going to patrol the rivers and light up um, all these places for the victims of COVID-19. Yeah, basically, and I had to read. I don't know the exact what the headline was, but it was all being done for people who've died only due to coronavirus or COVID-19. I was like, what? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like, it was mental health. They went around patrolling the rivers, and lighting up places around Limerick, like the UL on this site, and it was all to do with people who've died of coronavirus only, and nothing else. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel for the victims deep down and who died of COVID-19. But why would you bring Mental Health Awareness Week into only of people of COVID and not about anyone else, like on that front? Why would you? I couldn't believe what I was seeing on that. Like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, what on earth? Like, I couldn't believe that when I saw it. Like, if it was all like it was taken out of context. Like, COVID-19 should not have been mentioned in any capacity. Maybe on a very small level in relation to the pandemic. But why would you make it all about people who died of COVID and nothing about mental health, about people who've attempted suicide or committed suicide, which has been going on for years in that river? And there was someone who died of suicide there recently before that, a woman that was pregnant, and she committed suicide because she wasn't able to take it anymore with all what was going on. And nothing even was said about that, even that like, it was all about to do with people who died of coronavirus before people who had any problems with suicide or anything. And I'm deeply disturbed by that. And there was a lot of people, there were people like volunteers out there promoting this, and mental health organisers. And the thing about that was the mental health organisers. I couldn't believe that they were actually part of this. Why would they want to facilitate in that? Or the people around Limerick and that. When you think that I thought that they wouldn't want anything to do with that. When other organisations were trying to come in and say to them mental health organisers to do this and for people who died of COVID, you think they'd respond and rebel and say no, no, like this is a mental health crisis. People are dying of suicide. How could you put COVID before that? It's actually up on the internet if you want to look at it. I might just leave the link here, but it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. I'm infuriated over it. I couldn't believe what that like, and it's gone that far where people who died, only people they went around the rivers, around patrolling the rivers around Limerick for that week, and and then the place is being lit up only for people who died of COVID on Mental Health Week when it's all supposed to be for mental health illness or mental health. I just that I couldn't believe it really. And the mental health. What I'm astonished at is the mental health organisers around Limerick were. You think they wouldn't want to be part of that, wouldn't you? I thought that, but I just think I'm going to say it out. I'm not going to say this is based on fact, but from what I can see in my gathering, that are these people being paid off, like the people who were involved in that, like were the mental health organisers being paid off, or by the HSE or something like to promote all that, or what, or even if even this is going far to say the Gardaí were they involved in paying them off as well, so that because they'd have some influence on saying that on COVID or whatever. Like is that what's going on? Like where these volunteers are being paid off by the authorities and by the healthcare system or the HSE and they're going along with it because money talks before mental health when it comes to COVID. I'm not saying that's facts now. I'm not saying that's the case, but what I'll say is I wouldn't be surprised if that was shocking. Shocking. Like I know what I'm saying is controversial, and I might get a bit of I call it slander whatever for saying this, what I'm saying, but I think I'm correct. The truth is its own witness, is what I'd say. That's this quote actually from Stephen Manning, like when he's as an organizer for Integrity Ireland and that. But I just couldn't believe that more people that was actually being allowed to happen around Limerick, and I'm shocked at it, shocked, like, and we're in a mental health crisis. Um, I couldn't believe that. I mean, we need to really the mental health crisis. It's just, like even I've heard other people, and that they've been really mistreated in the in when they were in the hospitals. Like they were, and people were actually went in. They actually went out looking for help. People that were suffering mentally, and they were turned away by the hospitals. It happened in Limerick, where one man took his life. Then a time later, and other people of the like as well. There's cases where they actually tried to get help and they were refused by the staff in the hospitals because they said you weren't mentally unwell enough to get help, and then they died shortly or time after shortly by committing suicide. It's shocking. It's shocking what's going on. Like I there's an awful lot I could say about this sort of stuff. You know Um, I do applaud like people that get saved by suicide in the rivers and that kind of thing, and all that kind of too. But there's another issue I want to bring in as well, and it's euthanasia on this as well. Euthanasia is basically a procedure where people who are people that are in chronic pain, whatever condition they're in, um, they are like they're sedated, like they're injected out to die in a painless, um, painless and in an appropriate environment in a valid manner where they're not, they're they'd be in a place outside of the public eye and that. Well, euthanasia is what it does for people who suffer chronically from things like severe forms of cancer, and things like that. But euthanasia is a major topic as well here, with chronic conditions, and it's mainly for people that are who suffer from painful chronic conditions on the automatic sense, such as cancer, and like I said, and other ones of the like, um, severe epilepsy or things like that, or only if they have severe seizures and that. Well, the problem, like Another one disease actually is motor neuron disease, MND as well, where they where it's like which is considered like it's not even approved in all the cases. I've seen cases where people were in court where they wanted to get euthanasia done because their condition was going to make them worse, and like they were going to be paralyzed. They weren't paralyzed yet. They could somewhat function. They could function significantly as a human, but they were going to go to a state where they couldn't function. They were going to become paralyzed, and they demanded for euthanasia, and the judges in the courts were actually they refused the that person and people. There's one case in where it did happen where one person was refused euthanasia because the judge said it wasn't wasn't adequate for that. The problem I have is the judges and the courts and the authorities are not trained to be dealing with that. They're not trained to be dealing with those matters. That should be dealt by a doctor or a mental health professional for that person. And that person came out with a video saying that, I'm going to be paralyzed eventually. The judge said no and said things like that I'm going to be paralyzed, and yet and the judge also, this is a rotten judge, whoever you are, you're scum, but what I'll say is that the judge actually said as well that any family member or anyone who facilitates in your death, if anyone like commits a homicide or let's say intentionally murders the person, and that other person who wants to be let's say killed gives the consent to be killed, like let's say kill like and they'll under their permission, the people who do that would be breaking the law, and they'd be facing up to 13 years in prison for murder, even though the person will be saying, no, I want to die because I'm going to be, my condition's going to get worse, so I'm consenting for someone to take me out, a family member, whatever means, the most painless way possible, because euthanasia wasn't allowed, it was a plan B. But that judge gave up to, people who would, even a family member or whoever else would be involved in that, to be up in prison for 10 plus years. Well, that judge, you can go and F yourself going on like that, for people like, I don't know, I'm very angry about this sort of stuff. You can tell I'm very irritated by this. Um, yeah, we need to, I feel that euthanasia actually should be considered on a significance as well for people who are, let's say, who suffer from mental health issues on all psychiatric fields as well. But people with depression and anxiety, particularly for them, because I'll focus on depression and anxiety. Like, why can't euthanasia be for people like who are, let's say, in like be a consideration at least, for people that are suffering from like suicidal thoughts or symptoms of depression and anxiety? Why can't that be a thing for them? Because I'll tell you, this is going to be controversial what I'll say here as well, but if euthanasia was allowed for people that were in severe cases or be allowed in any capacity to be carried out on people, um, then people would, if they were going to a facility that was being allowed instead of attempting suicide in the rivers, let's say in Limerick, let's say in Ireland they allowed, if the euthanasia is actually illegal in Ireland, believe it or not, but if they made it legal or even decriminalised somewhat, being allowed to be legal somewhat, for that, decriminalised, let's say, for mental illness and mental health issues and their capacity and their capacities to that. Well, the thing is that then people would be going to the euthanasia centres or the hospitals to get euthanasia done. There should be actually a centre, I believe, where euthanasia can be considered for people that would be in a more suitable capacity, or a hospital, let's say, all with euthanasia alone and mental health. That should all actually be the mental health facilities should be all hospitals and care healthcare professionals and doctors and that. There should be all healthcare alone and away from all other conditions, so that it's dealt with on its own entity. I believe that should be done for mental health issues and mental health, like definitely, you know. But what I'm saying is that if euthanasia was allowed, or even considered as being that, like people would actually, I'd say the influx of people attempting suicide in those rivers would be lessened anyway, because people would be able to go to a facility where they could die or even be considered, even an application in some form or another, or even considered to die peacefully and painfully, or painlessly. Sorry, not painfully. I mean, of course, no, take that painlessly. Um, uh, and it wouldn't actually leave a mess, because when people attempt suicide in the river and that, Of course, I don't blame the people that are in that state. Maybe what's going on in their head, in their lives, you don't know. But from the perspective of the volunteers and maybe general society, particularly the volunteers and other people, passersby that would be in the public, if they're walking at that time of night or whatever circumstances, if it's whatever time during the day, if it's during the day or whatever day with people attempting going off and doing it, it probably is a lot less common during the day. It's at night, but it could be any time. Like you wouldn't know. But any members of the public who sees people in the river who, let's say, successfully attempted it, suicide, who they died with the body floating on the river, or if they are at least who are tried to attempting it, um, it's just it leaves a terrible aftermath and a knock-on effect or an aftermath for other people to see. So if euthanasia was actually considered in that circumstance, people would be able to go to those facilities more, and it wouldn't leave a big mess or a big, I won't call it mess, but a big, let's say, what would be the word? A kind of a big um, when I say mess, I guess that's the best word for other or a terrible aftermath on other people seeing the person or body or whatever way. Like it would be done in the appropriate manner. Um, and I just don't like how people out there even say for generally with mental health that people are selfish who attempt suicide or are selfish in themselves and that when they don't really know what's going on in their head and in their own lives with their major issues. Like there's certain people out there. I'm not saying all people are. I'm just saying there are certain people out there. And they wouldn't be people like I don't know. I'd know them and I wouldn't know them. It goes into the entire population out there that are so arrogant towards mental health issues, illness. They're so arrogant and so they make people's illnesses, conditions worse in their mental. Because they make people's mental health, emotions worse with the way they go on. But certainly on a generalized societal view with certain people out there. I've seen comments on Facebook. The reason I've seen comments on there was a platform where a man actually put up a video saying that he can't take it anymore and he needs the help and the mental health system is wrong. This was put up. He was uploaded from Ennis. A man in Ennis put up something saying that he's been turned away, and when he tried to get help, and that the mental health services are wrong, and he knew he needs the help because if he can't get it, he doesn't know if he can take it anymore. But his friends were crying on the phone not to do it, and like that. And it was really distressing to see. But like at least it was good that he put up the video to get it out there to express it. But there was a comment I saw, like a particular comment from someone, and what they said was just unbelievable. Like they said the comment was like, you know, we don't need people like this clogging up and jamming up our health system. People like this. There's real people out there who really suffer from issues, man. But there's people like this who just clog up our system. Like and he was talking about the person. The comment was put under the video where the person was expressing that they were, you know, suicidal and that. And a comment like that was said by someone else that they were clogging up our system, those wasters, or I don't know exactly what he said, but it was something of that kind of nature, or that trend was said. It's like, what is wrong with those type of people? Like, them kind of people I can't stand who go on like that, or arrogance of some people like that. But yeah, I will leave links to in this video because I might not be able to express it verbally properly on there. So it goes into so many areas, like I said, and I will leave some links that might back up and explain it better on what I'm saying on how it would fix your mental health system. And some of the videos will vary in length as well from YouTube and other, on that too. And we'll go into like prohibition with drugs, like how how we need to legalize them, how to like and that kind of thing. And I explained about housing in the other videos. It all links from that as well. What we need to do to sum it up, really, we need to have all supports for health issues, mental health, let's say, I'll just call it mental health, all that to be free, even private capacities to be free for people, funded by the state. We need to do that and not have people paying, individuals paying the healthcare therapists any sum of money, and the therapist should be all funded by the state because it involves suicide, and especially in Limerick, it's such a crisis, and even elsewhere in the country. Limerick, that river is it's a curse. It's a curse in the river and what's going on, and just that the fact of the matter is that the powers that be are not doing anything about it, or they're even worse, like for not even addressing this issue. And I hope that if they were to see this video, if this gets out there, they might kind of do the right moral, integral thing and get things going with this, you know. But to sum it up, like um, yeah, we need to all psychiatric forms of healthcare for depression, anxiety, let's say other ones as well, like for other like schizophrenia and that as well. I didn't talk much anything about schizophrenia, but that should be all funded and not be costing any money for all levels, all tiers, from private to public. I know there's some free services, and I'm thankful for that. Free support services that are public, like, but still, like, even I could say things about them as well that are they're errors, but at least they're there. But we need it all of it to be funded. We need the healthcare system to completely having radical reforms, radical overhauls on that as well, on the mental health. And this goes for all. I will say this as well, that I think healthcare should be all fund. It should be free for everyone, or should be funded by the state, or funded for everyone. Everyone should be getting free healthcare. But why should you have to pay money to get any help with any condition, any medical condition, not just mental health? So if you're on private health, basically it's set up in a way, if you're on private healthcare, if you have money and you have enough money to get private healthcare, you're moved up the ranks in the hospitals and in the treatment centres, the healthcare centres for all conditions. You're moved up the ranks and you're seen first with doctors and mental health professionals, or professionals generally. You're seen up the ranks ahead of people that are public who don't have private healthcare insurance. It's shocking. It shouldn't be that way. There shouldn't be a divide where people who have money that have private healthcare insurance get seen before people who don't. Like, it should be treated the exact same way. I'm not saying people who have more money should be treated less. It should be all the exact same when it comes to health. This is our health. Like, it shouldn't be in this. It's basically set up in a way where it's like priority boarding. If you're going on a Ryanair flight or whatever flight with Aer Lingus or whatever, if you're going on a flight to another country and you've got priority boarding paid for, you get moved up you get to go ahead of the queue because you paid for an extra to be on the plane first, and you get the best seats in the plane, and to be on getting the best luxuries, or the best, like, you know, the absolute best seats to be sitting on the plane. That's what it is for priority boarding for Ryanair as well, and you pay for it and you get moved up the ranks. So basically what it is that for the queue for priority boarding, they let people go on the plane first and then they leave the others behind, which I something a little bit against that, but it's tolerable because it's going on a plane, it's not in a healthcare facility or capacity, you know. And but the others don't go on the plane then till later, after the priority boarding is catered for first. We have that in our healthcare systems, our healthcare, the hospitals and that kind of thing. It's shocking. It shouldn't be going to that extent at all. And like, the health, anyone with any forms of mental health should be all funded for free, um, by the state. Like, you know, people should be paying directly out of the pocket, out of their own money when it comes, you know, when it comes to these issues. The Suicide Prevention Treaty and others of the like should be. That's shocking. That, like, they should be giving that place supports to be getting maintenance and that, like, you know, getting a place to stay to support their equipment and supports and that. Like, why wouldn't they just do it? Like, why? Like, you know, that's Stephen Limerick's word in the street couldn't believe it, and I appreciate them for doing it. But the answer of the matter is that their government couldn't give a damn or a toss really about these issues, and I'd hope that they kind of change their minds and kind of think twice, like, or think again, you know, on how this needs to be emphasized. That like, the other thing as well, like putting out reports like about, you know, putting COVID-19 people who are dying of COVID-19 before people who are dying of mental health, dying of suicide in that river, and the way that was expressed, like, shocking out of the leader and that. And I don't know why they, like, what, you know, I'm expressing my personal views and opinions on this as well, so I don't want to be done for, you know, sedition or anything like that, even for generally as well in what I'm saying, because it is insensitive what I'm saying. But that was shocking. What I saw there was unbelievable. That, like, I don't know. I'll share the links anyway. After this, we need to do that, and also we need to Yeah, like even I was saying as well about our courts and everything as well, about we need to do radical reforms on our policing, on the courts, on the judiciary, and the healthcare system, and that it's all links into what I'm saying in this video as well. Like I know this is all for mental health, but I try to, I try to, let's say, narrow it or have it entailed towards mental health, but the other areas were brought into it as well. So yeah, I'll leave it there. What I was saying about that, euthanasia as well, like getting that. Actually, euthanasia should be, let's say, decriminalised slash even legalised, even for people with mental health as well. It should be thrown into the same bracket as other chronic conditions, as mental health, when it comes to, your own thoughts and that. That should be considered for people who need it, and a grey. It is maybe in some circumstances if there's prospect of improvement for the person that's alive. Let's say if they got out of their bad mental state or even state in the, mental state. I'll keep it entailed on mental health, because if there is prospect of improvement, then I agree that maybe euthanasia not be carried out on that, and that kind of thing. Um, but it should be they should get the adequate supports to reach that capacity and reach that like level of being in prospect of improvement to enjoy life again. But technically, you could argue and saying let them go anyway, because like think about like in a way like I agree with euthanasia or a certain extent, because if basically you're one day like there's a view that you're going to die anyway. You're going to die anyway. All you're doing, or what you're doing now, is that you're ending your life or taking your life out at an earlier stage, but because you're ending it earlier at an earlier stage or phase in your life, because you don't want to go on any further because of feeling or of how you're feeling, or it's going to get worse, or what your circumstances aren't going to get better, so you want to die at an earlier stage. Like I agree to that to an extent that there's one side saying that you're dying at an earlier stage, you're going to die anyway. So let people go. Like I mean, if they want it, it's their own choice what to do with their own bodies and body integrity, and just their decisions as an individual. But then there's the other side saying if they can get better and let them live on in that, and then it could upset family members and people that love them, friends and that. When it comes to that, that's the other side too. But I just think that really boils down to the individual. The individual has a decision out of it at the end of the day. Like it supersedes the rest of the of other from other people's decisions, whether in the family or not, parents, loved ones, friends, and that. Like I know that they have a say. Of course, they should be considered, but it boils down to the absolute individual at the end of the day. If an individual wants to leave the world and not want to live anymore for whatever reason, I just think that that supersedes everything else. That the individual decides. Of course, if they're in a stable capacity that and they're making the informed decision. If they aren't, then that's another area, a grey area for debate. Like this, you could really debate about this stuff all day and night. I could anyway. But we need to get these issues raised, and they need to be emphasized. So yeah, that's like there's more I might have could have emphasized as well that I didn't mention, like, and I might have been repeating myself as I've been saying, because and I might be rushed as well in my and the way I'm speaking in my speech and that, but I want to get this out there, and I'll leave links, like I'll leave links to certain videos to kind of try and back up what I'm saying a bit more, and if you could look at them, I'd appreciate it after this, or if you can, like, um, there might be other things I didn't mention here that I might want to add it if I forgot to then, but sure, look, I think I've got the majority of that out there, and we need to change. Um, we need radical reforms in our healthcare system for mental health, especially with that, and then all other conditions as well. I just think that it should all be people shouldn't be paying money to get, you know, for cancer, for example, as well. People shouldn't be paying money to fight off cancer. That should be all funded by the state for everyone, and it can be done with big corporations here. Like if they increase the tax, like I was saying, with how to fix the tax, and people would be able to live on and even be able to pay then with comfortable living, and they weren't taxed so hard as well. With working that and that. Like this goes into so many areas here, but I'll leave it there. Like I'll leave it there. I've said that a few times now. I could keep going on and on and on. So look, I'll leave it there, and hopefully we can get this out, or and that. Like it was hard. It was tough to do this video on this, because I tried to, as I said, to do it, like cut it off. I won't even look over this video, I'd say, really fully. I might look at it, analyze it from time on, but I won't be looking at it, because I might look at it and say, oh, I'm not putting it up because I said this. So it said that in that part, but I just want to put it up and get it out there. Um, so that's all I really wanted to say, and I might maybe develop into getting it on other platforms and stuff like because YouTube is the only one I'm getting these out there, like So yeah, I'll leave it there, and thanks for listening, and God bless.